Good morning, everybody. My name is Sandy Smith. I am the founder and CEO of Survivor's Journey to Peace. And I would like to thank you all for joining us today for our third annual domestic violence event, Survivors Soaring, our global domestic violence summit. We have an awesome event planned for you today. We have 8 survivors from 4 different countries. We are united by domestic violence. However, we come together in solidarity to bring awareness to domestic abuse. Per the CDC, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience domestic violence at least once in their lifetime. At least 5 million acts of domestic violence occur annually to women age 18 years old and up, with over 3 million involving domestic abuse. Today, we are going to share stories. We're going to bring hope to those who are still in domestic violence relationships. We are going to remember those who lost their lives to domestic violence, and we are going to celebrate the survivors who have actually survived domestic violence. Survivor is a person who copes with a bad situation or affliction and who gets through, or a person who manages to live through a situation that often causes death. The women that you meet today are a survivor. They all carry the characteristics of leadership, problem solving, etiquette, emotional regulation, and active well-being. This is not something that came overnight. This actually took a journey in order for these individuals, these survivors, to get to where they are today. And they are in a place in their life right now where they are able to go back and share what they've learned on their journey, and also to share that and bring awareness and help other individuals who may be in darkness come out and see that there is hope and there is life after abuse. We are going to open up in prayer right now with Pastor Chris Randa Taylor.
Father, we give this event over to you, and we thank you for this opportunity. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Father, in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Pastor Taylor. We are now going to introduce our first survivor, Miss Tammy Mobley. We're going to share some Tammy's bio. Tammy Mobley and survivor. Tammy is the owner of Flawless Imperfections, LLC. As an emotional empowerment specialist, she provides a safe, supportive, non-judgment environment to a journey of emotional empowerment. And I now introduce to you Mrs. Tammy Mobley, who will be sharing her testimony.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you for having me here. I really do like how you said survivor's journey because that's exactly what it is for a survivor. I mean, it's a journey for us to get to peace, for us to be able to share our stories. And just like you said, it does not happen overnight. I'm a domestic violence survivor for the past 15 years after ending a very unhealthy relationship. It was unhealthy emotionally, mentally, and eventually it turned to physical abuse. I met my ex-husband. I can't even remember the years, it's been so long, but we were together for a total of 14 years. But during our dating phase, that it was emotionally unhealthy at that time. But at that time, I did not even know what the red flags are. I know now a lot of domestic violence survivors said, look for those red flags. But at that time, I didn't know what the red flags were. At that time that I wasn't feeling healthy myself. So when two unhealthy people come together, it creates just a web of destruction. We used to go back together, back and forth. There was a lot of arguing. There was a lot of cheating. There was a lot of emotional and mental abuse. But still in all, even though I seen that, I still ended up marrying him. Even prior to marrying, if we went out, if I would go out with my girlfriends, he would stalk me, which I didn't even realize it was stalking at the time. He would either hang out outside my home or follow me in the car, and my girlfriend would just laugh and say, there's your crazy boyfriend following you. And we would just laugh about it and shrug it off. Because at that time, it's just like, okay, he's just acting crazy. He's just acting jealous. But we never thought anything about it. So I eventually married him, even though that I probably shouldn't have. And, you know, when people say, listen to your mom, listen to your family, I would tell people to take that advice, because that was something that my mother did not really want to happen. But I married anyway. You know, when you're young and in love and your heart is telling you to go ahead for it, you just go for it. While we were married, after 2 years into the marriage, I became pregnant with my now 17-year-old son. And that's when the abuse took to another level. The day that I was getting ready to, I'm gonna go back again, because I went to premature labor because of the abuse, because of the arguing. The yelling, it wasn't getting physical at that time, but just emotionally, it was abusive until I was on bed rest. The day that I actually went into labor, we had a very big argument because I went into the bank account and all my money was gone out of a bank account that we shared together. So we had a very big argument. When he was leaving, I closed the door, slammed the door, and I went into premature labor later on that evening. At the hospital, he never came home that night. My teenage son at that time was through him and my mother were the ones that drove me to the hospital to deliver my baby. And I did not even see my husband until right before the baby was born. So the abuse just escalated after then. I thought that maybe since we had a child together that everything would be better, but unfortunately it was not. He still continued to go out. I still would find telephone numbers until one day I just said, you know what, this is it, I'm done, and I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. As we know, when we tell an abuser that we're finished, that's when they lose control, because we know abuse is about control. So actually, he realized that he didn't have control anymore, and that's when abuse actually escalated. I was kidnapped. I was raped in the bed with my son. One time I was going out, I was raped. I had a knife pulled to me. I had all my clothes thrown out of my closet, thrown in the basement, and was told that I need to live in the basement. So eventually I'm not going to say I found the strength to leave, that I just left because I had a baby and I wanted to be a better mother for him. So we left out the house. I had a protective order. And one night he broke into the house that I was staying with my brother, and I was pistol whipped and physically assaulted at that time. And I say the only reason that I'm here now as my journey is because God was watching over me, because as he was dragging me out of the house, a neighbor saw and called the police and says, this lady is being assaulted. I ran back into the house and he ran out of the back of the house. The police came, the ambulance came, and on my way to the ambulance, while on my way to the hospital, while I was in the ambulance, the only thing I was thinking at this time is that I need to get my kids and I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave Maryland. I'm not going to stay here anymore because I can't take it. I can't take that I'm looking over my shoulder. I can't take the anxiety. I can't take the stress. I was already out of work for 3 months. But when I reached to the hospital, I was bloodied. I had to get stitches over my eye. I looked so bad that the paramedics, when I looked so bad, the triage thought that was in a car accident because I had to get an MRI on my brain and everything. And at the hospital, that's when I learned that he died by suicide. So when you say survivor journey to peace, I totally understand that it was not an easy journey. And I wouldn't even say that I'm at peace right now. I would say that I'm still in the process of healing. And that's exactly what I do now. I'm an empowerment coach for women that's going through the journey, that's going through domestic violence, to inspire them that there is a tomorrow. I am remarried right now and happy. I also host a radio show, Beyond Survivor with Tammy, where I recognize, empower, and support survivors, not just the domestic violence, but anyone that's gone through any life challenges. I provide, I'm the founder of Real Girls Responsible, Empowered, and Loved, a character and leadership and healthy relationship program for teen girls, for them to recognize what a healthy relationship is in dating, because obviously I did not know what that was as well. And I recently became the United States ambassador for Virginia. And what that is fighting for the equality of women and gender equality of women. So that's just a little bit about my story, the testimony. I am in the process of writing the book, so there's so much more that I could say, but I know I don't want to take up any more time. I just want to say thank you. I just want to say, if you are in a domestic violence situation, I just read something on someone's social media page yesterday. It was a man, and he's saying that people, if you're in a toxic relationship, you're accepting the toxic relationship, and you're not. We know abuse is about control. We don't have control at the time. It's about manipulation. And a lot of times our mind is telling us to leave, but our heart is preventing us to leave. If you are in an unhealthy relationship, find your way out, find someone to talk to, find a safe place. Thank you for allowing me to share my story.
For sharing. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I'm sure that your story resonates with someone out there in our viewing audience who may have suffered the same type of abuse that you have suffered. And Tammy is doing some amazing things right now after abuse, which shows that you can have a whole successful and beautiful life after abuse. And now we are going to introduce our next survivor, Veronica Blajan. And Veronica is a Bolivia native survivor. She's a meditation teacher and life coach. On her free time, she gives workshops about healthy relationships, domestic violence, and she's in the process of writing a book and telling her story. And we would like to welcome Veronica.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. As you said, my name is Veronica Blajin. I'm from Bolivia, South America, but now I'm living here in California. And when you talk about domestic violence, everybody think, when I start talking about this with my friends and family, everybody started saying, have you been hit? And I think that we need to make difference about domestic violence. We need to clarify that domestic violence can come in different circumstances. For example, emotional, economical, psychological, and of course, physical. In my case, I cannot say that my aggressor hit me, but he really messed with my mind. I came here to California. We got married. He's from here. He's American, and I didn't have anybody here. My family, everybody, my friends, everybody's back there in my country. So I had to um, I had to go through all of this all by myself. And my story started when I when I got married. I know that things were not right. There are some things, like, as Tommy called, the red flags. But sometimes you just pretend that things are going to get better, because in my mind I always thought, like, the love that I have is going to change him. But something that we need to make clear is that people don't change just because you want. People need to change just because they want to change. And that's what I learned over this few years. We got married. I realized that he had terrible problems, and violence started. Of course, calling you by names, yelling at you, putting down. In my country, I used to be a lawyer. I used to be in charge of these cases. I used to help women to deal with this kind of situations. And when I become the victim, I didn't want to accept that. And it's kind of difficult. But once you accept that that you're living in a situation that is not normal, you need to do something. In my case, things started to escalate. There were many things that happened during my relationship, and of course you start to believe that he's going to change, and you give him many opportunities. But there's a point where your life is at risk. So in my case, I gave him many opportunities, to the point where he told me that if I get pregnant, things were going to change. And I got pregnant. Now I have two beautiful twin girls, identical twin girls. And it was because of them that I decided to leave my abusive relationship, because things were escalated. And as I said, I had to deal with all of this pain and and just because of them and my daughters, and I had to do everything by myself without any kind of help. And what I tell to everybody who's there in this situation is that if you find yourself that you cannot even see yourself through the mirror, because that's what happened to me. I didn't want to have any mirrors in my house, because I couldn't see myself. I hated myself. I hated what I was seeing through the mirror. When you feel that you are not happy, when you feel that you're scared of your partner, you just need to leave. And especially if you're a mom, you need to give your kids the example that what you are living is not normal. And I think that most of us, the survivors, were moms. And I think that our main goal was to leave that situation just because we have kids. But if you're single and if you don't have kids, and you feel that you're scared, you're not happy, just find help. And you can do it. You can do it. Now I can say that after filing for a restraining order, going to court, it's been 6 years that I've been going to court, because even though after the restraining order, he has a lot of money and he tried to take the custody of my kids, I didn't have money to hire a lawyer. At the beginning, I was working with a lawyer, but they were taking all my money and the few amount of money that I had, so I had to defend myself all these 6 years. And at the end, I'm very happy to say that my kids are with me, and now I'm working for a nonprofit organization. I'm helping families with low income. And I'm a meditation teacher. I'm a life coach, because I realized that you need to change. You cannot continue blaming everybody who's around you. You cannot continue blaming your abuser. It's the changes that you have to do. So now I'm very happy to say that I can tell my story and that I'm helping other people. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica, for sharing your story. Veronica, again, is a Bolivia native that basically lets us know when we say that domestic violence can happen to anyone, anywhere, in any country. That is a living testimony that no matter where you are, you can be a victim. Domestic violence is prevalent. Domestic violence is just as prevalent um, as the pandemic that we in. Domestic violence is a pandemic itself. So we are living in a pandemic within a pandemic. I would like to just briefly share the number to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. If you are in an unhealthy relationship, if you are experiencing any type of abuse and you need to reach out for support and help, you can contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. And right now we are going to be introducing our next speaker, and her name is Tanya J. Tanya is a Canadian native and the founder of Feminine Empowerment. She's a feminine empowerment coach, and she's also an image consultant of Light Your Divine Path. Tanya is also a thriving survivor of narcissistic abuse. As a feminine empowerment coach, Tanya works with women who are ready to reclaim their self-worth after leaving a toxic relationship. Tanya is passionate about inspiring and supporting women and reconnecting to the empowered divine feminine that exists within all of us. And Tanya J.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to be here today. I first want to just thank you, Sandy, for reaching out to me via Facebook to be a part of this amazing event. And I also just wanted to commend all of the viewers that are watching the live of this event and maybe even the replay later on today or weeks down the road for taking the first step towards their journey of healing. So as you mentioned a little bit about me, I'm the founder of Light Your Divine Path, which is a feminine empowerment life coaching company. As an empowerment life coach, I support and help other women to heal and reclaim their life with passion, purpose, and clarity after leaving an emotionally abusive relationship. And I myself am a survivor of emotional abuse. My abuse, as just mentioned, was not so much physical. I couldn't point to it. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't say, this is what he did to me. It was all psychological. When you are in a relationship with a covert narcissist, it's a mind game. And for those of you or your viewers that may not be aware of what narcissism is, it is a severe personality disorder. So what happened as because he was a covert narcissist, the way that he appeared in public was completely how he, engaged me in private. So in public, he was extremely likable, very charming, handsome, well-spoken, articulate, was a community worker. Everybody knew him for the work that he did in the community, but behind closed doors, it was a completely different story. He was a monster. So, how he hooked me in was through the love bombing stage. And the love bombing stage is all about, making you their target, the center of their world. They put you up on a pedestal for a little bit. And over time, their mission is to slowly bring you down. And in bringing you down, through the process, they tear you down. They tear down your self-esteem. They tear down your self-worth. They tear down your self-confidence. By the time I left that relationship, I was a shadow of the woman that I used to be. So you go into the relationship when you're dealing with a covert narcissist, which in my case, that was my experience. You go into the relationship a whole and complete person, and you leave that relationship, because I was involved with him for a period of 7 years, on and off, tug of war, on and off. And I left that relationship a shadow of who I used to be. I felt like I would explain to people, like, I feel like a walking zombie. It's definitely mind manipulation when you are in such a relationship with a narcissist, because that is their way of bringing harm to you. That's their form of abuse. So it's not, like I said, something that you can point to and say, well, he did this to me last night. It happens over time. And how it all started happening was, it would be a white lie, a little white lie here, a little white lie there. And if I confronted him on, variety of things that I would catch him lying about, he would turn it around on me and make me feel as though I was crazy for even thinking that he would cheat on me, or that he went out somewhere where he said that he wouldn't go. So to most people, that may seem very simple. Well, I don't see how that could, hurt you or damage you. But you have to remember that this is over time. And during the love bombing stage, they have you thinking of them in such a way that he's your knight in shining armor, and he's going to be there to protect you and love on you. He wants to marry you. But over time, through the gaslighting, which is another tactic that they use, is all about making you go a little bit crazy every day and thinking or doubting what it is that you know to be true, but they flip that on you. And over time, it progressed to him breaking down my character, breaking down my self-esteem. If I spoke to one of his friends and we were just having a casual conversation, he would call me a slut, he would call me a whore, and this was a regular occurrence. But again, on the outside in public, he was a completely different person. So when I tried to engage and talk to friends about it, they would be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Such and such, he's such a wonderful person. He treats you so well. But, when I see you two together, but when I tried to explain to them what was going on behind closed doors, it was completely apples and oranges, dealing with two people. I always say it was dealing with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So as time went on, I would leave, he would coax me back in with the love bombing, and then the devalue stage would start. So the devalue stage is all about completely eliminating your identity, your self-image, your self-confidence, your self-esteem. And that's done through just saying comments about who they think that you are, what you are doing behind closed doors when you're really not in fact doing any of those things. I remember one night we were coming back from one of his events, and I was a little bit hungry, and I asked him, can we go and pick something up? And he was fine. He was casual about it. He's like, sure, babe, we can go. And we stopped by a drive-through and we ordered the food, and we were sitting there, and it's just like a complete snap. He just turns to me and he's like, you got this, right? You're paying for this, right? I'm like, okay, it's just, burger and fries. And when we got the food in the car, he threw it at me. So it's like a snap change when you're dealing with a narcissist. So that automatically puts you on guard, and you just don't know what you're getting from moment to moment. So eventually I noticed that my friends stopped calling me, they stopped engaging me. And what they also like to do is, while they're love bombing you and having you up on this pedestal, they're working behind the scenes to tear down your character in public. So I was isolated. I didn't have anyone to talk to, because he had other people thinking that I was the one in the relationship that was crazy, that was irrational. And by the time towards the end of that relationship, when he broke it off and he just left because he was already in another relationship, I had no support system there. I didn't have anybody that I could reach out to, because he was already doing all the behind the work in tearing me down, tearing down my character. So when I finally did leave, there was a period, as people often refer to it as the dark night of the soul, where I was just going through this phase in life where it's like, I just could not get myself together. And referring back to my earlier comment, you just feel like a zombie when you leave that relationship. You're a shadow of who you used to be. So I was unbalanced in all areas of my life. I was dysregulated emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. And it took quite a few, I would say about 3 years before I could really settle into what actually happened to me. And during that time, I was going through I guess you can say, looking back on it, I was going through a spiritual awakening. I was questioning my spirituality. I was praying. I was doing the inner work. I was so frustrated with life because I just couldn't function after I left that relationship. I couldn't go to work. I quit work. I was on welfare for a few months. And I just could not function. And that is what's so damaging after you get out of a relationship with a covert narcissist, is that, like I said, it's a psychological game. So even though you can't point to what's going on with you, even though you can't touch and say, oh, he did this to me, it's all happening inside. And by the time you leave that relationship, it's like you're fragmented and you're picking up the pieces of the person that you used to be, but it's not quite fitting together. So that time, those few years between that breakup and healing myself, is when I had to go within. I had to cocoon myself. I didn't have anyone to talk to because social media is their playground. That's where they like to slander you. That's where they like to create rumors about you. And that's where he knew a lot of my support system was going to come from. So he blocked me from that. So I was essentially on my own for a little while. So I went into a cocoon stage and I prayed every day. I'm like, God, show me what it is that you want me to do. And I'll never forget it. It was January 1st, 2016. I woke up. Call it the Holy Spirit, call it the universe. I just heard something within me said, enough. You're going to get up. You're going to start putting your life back together, one piece at a time. And through it, you're going to be supported. And every day that I took that step to put my life back together, every day that I started loving on me again, filling myself up again through meditation, just through taking walks in nature, getting to know myself again, setting new boundaries for my life, that's when I started to build again. So I would say to anybody that's viewing this is, don't judge yourself. Don't feel guilty. Don't blame yourself. Take your time in this phase of your life, in this season of your life, to understand yourself, to understand what happened to you. Find a support system. Even if you don't have friends, there's support out there online. Find a support system. Educate yourself. Learn yourself. And just take that time to heal and to, just, be in the presence of what I like to say, your higher self, be in the presence of God, the universe, and just ask from it, how to move forward. How do you want me to endure the rest of this journey of healing? So.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for sharing your story with us. So what you have seen is that domestic violence doesn't always result in physical. It doesn't always result in someone having a bruise or someone having wounds to show that they have been in an abusive relationship. Sometimes it can be totally mental and emotional, which can definitely cause a lot of harm and a lot of hurt, just as if someone was physically assaulted or hurt. Right now, we are going to prepare for me to share my story and my testimony with you at this time. So I am Sandy Smith. I am the founder and CEO of Survivor's Journey to Peace. My never in a million years did I ever imagine that I would become a statistic. Never in a million years did I think that I would become so entangled in a complex yet misunderstood web of domestic violence. Never in a million years did I believe I would become a woman who would fall victim to physical, verbal, and emotional abuse. But God, but I did. In domestic violence, women between the ages of 18 and 24 years are at greater risk of being in an intimate partner, a violent relationship. And that was me at 18 years old. At 18 years old, I met a young man, very charismatic, very nice, nice young man. Just graduated from high school. He was the, star on the football team. So he was just a very, very nice, nice guy. So we met in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is where I'm from. We met and everything was great. We talked on the phone for hours. We shared a lot of things in common. And he was very, very protective of me. He provided for me. Everything was great. Shortly after we were together, I started just, staying on the phone late, not able to get up to go to school because of that. And my family started to recognize that, I was doing some things that I usually wouldn't do. One night, I actually stayed out all night, didn't know that that was happening. He had plans, and there it was. I think that was the end of the rope for my family. My mother was like, hey, this is totally out of your character. And ever since you got with this person, you've been, doing things and just acting totally out of the norm for you. So I want you to stop seeing him. I shared that information with my abuser, and that actually didn't go over well, because that kind of prompted him to just take it to another level. He did not want anyone or anything to come between our relationship. He mentioned that I'm gonna get us a house and then we'll live together, and we wouldn't have to worry about, as he say, people being in our business. I didn't think it was going to happen. And then one day, he said, hey, I got us a house. And I was just totally speechless. Little did I know that the move took place. I was of age, so my mother could really not stop me, but just give me her blessing, and let her know, let me know that she was there for me. I was still in school. We're together. Everything is great. I'm going to school, coming home, everything is great. After a few weeks, I noticed, his behavior changed. His temper was very short. Anything, it was like walking on eggshells, because I didn't want to, cause any type of friction or anything. I just, didn't want to make him angry or upset. So I just kind of went to school, came home, and that was kind of it. Shortly thereafter, I did become pregnant. I remember one time I went to school, and I had some classmates who were into art, and they had some marketing information, a photo that they signed, and they was giving to everyone. So they made one out to me. So I went home, and as I'm doing my homework, he noticed the photo in my papers, and he just went totally ballistic. He tore the picture up in little pieces. He tore my homework up and everything. Just throwed it around the room, accused me of cheating, this, that, and the other. And next thing you know, he's kind of throwing me from one side of the room to the other. And he just went bananas. I believe this was the first time that he actually physically assaulted me. What I remember is landing in a closet on top of dirty laundry, and him standing in the doorway of the closet with one hand on each side of the door. And with all, at this point, I was about, 5 months pregnant. And he began to kick me in my back because I was in a fetal position. He began to kick me, and as he's kicking me, he's cussing, and I'll beat this baby out of you, and this, that, and the other. And lo and behold, the next day I was at this point, I was emotionally, physically, I was just spiritually done. I had nothing left in me but the child that I was carrying. And I was fighting not for myself, but for her as well. I noticed that it just kind of got to a point where my purpose, I thought my purpose in life at that point was, to just be this person's punching bag, because that was what my life was at the time. I would go to school, I would come home, and 9 times out of 10 I was getting beat. And the one incident that kind of ended things is, I remember that day it was just a lot of verbal abuse going on. And he would just walk around the house and just call me names. You ugly black bee, you this, you lucky you lucky I have you, or I even want you, because don't nobody else want you. He totally alienated me from my family, and he turned it around as to say they don't like me, they don't want me, that's why they don't even come around. The last incident before I left was, I remember getting ready to take a shower, and I was just in the bathroom with a candle lit, and that was the only safe place for me, was in the bathroom. And so as I was taking that time to prepare to take a shower in the bathroom, I had the lights off, and just just trying to be in the moment. He came into the bathroom, and he said, be what you're doing. And he just as I was standing in the mirror, looking in the mirror, all I could see was his eyes and my eyes. And out of nowhere, he put a gun up to my right temple. And he just was like, I'll shoot you and I'll kill you, and nobody won't know anything. And at that point, I was totally done. I was totally done. I prayed, and nothing was happening. And I told him, I was just like, do it. I don't care, just do it. Because to me, death had to be a lot more better than life on earth, as I was experiencing at that time. And as I said that, I felt the gun press a little bit more pressure on my temple, and I felt him adjust his finger. And I looked over to the candle, and that's all I saw was the flame. I closed my eyes, just preparing myself. And and I just felt him nudge my head and just push me on the floor, and just called me stupid, this, that, and the other, and I ought to kill you, and this, that, and he left the bathroom. That was the breaking point for me. The abuse didn't end there, but shortly thereafter, he left the house, and I got a call later that he was arrested for something other than physical abuse, because I never reported anything because of the fear. So I got word that he had went to jail. He was arrested, and I grabbed my purse, made sure I had my social security card and my ID in it, and I left the house, and I never went back. And that was 31 years ago. And I thank God for saving me, because I know several times I should have probably been gone, but I believe and I know that he was saving me for a moment just as this. And right now I am a domestic violence advocate. I'm a survivor. I'm also a chaplain. I work with individuals who are going through issues in life. I also coach and mentor individuals as well. And I believe I was saved for this. My story I hid for 28 years. I didn't share it. I left town and moved here to Milwaukee, wore my mask, and about 3 years ago, God asked me to remove it to let people know what he has done and that he has saved me. And he let me know that, yes, you do have a testimony. And I have been sharing my story ever since, and that birth survivor's journey to peace. So if you have a young teenager, someone who is in those vulnerable stages of 18 to 24 years old, and you notice that they're not themselves, that they're doing some things that they probably wouldn't do, I would definitely engage, ask questions, reach out, and just try to be there for them, because you never know what they may be going through. And so again, if you are in an unhealthy relationship, I would again give the number to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 1-800-799-7233. And through my journey, I have created a mentoring program, Level Up. That program also works with men to help them recognize who they are in the kingdom and to take their rightful place in their home, in the community, and also in the kingdom, and to help them, learn and establish, how to have healthy relationships, in hopes that would transcend and we can build a community and a nation of whole and healthy women, men, and children. So right now we are going to take a short break, and I would like you to enjoy the video that is coming. It tells about Survivor's Journey to Peace, what we do, and what we are, seeking to do in the near future. So if you can enjoy the video, we'll be right back.
Domestic violence has impacted a heartbreaking number of men, women, and children across the country. It is an epidemic with tragic consequences, and many individuals find it a struggle to leave an abusive partner. With limited family support and immense financial challenges, fear of the uncertain, such as court proceedings, many victims may feel that staying with an abusive partner is their only option. This is where Survivor's Journey to Peace can help. Survivor's Journey to Peace is a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization that rebuilds, restores, and transforms the lives of domestic violence and sexual assault survivors. SJTP provides survivors and victims the opportunity to be heard and have access to resources and opportunities to realize an abusive life via our services. Safety planning, mentoring program, children's program, financial literacy, counseling and support groups, confidential shelter resources, community education and outreach, court advocacy and legal assistance, career services, job training, job placement, community awareness sessions held at churches, schools, universities, community organizations, groups, workplace safety training to make a more educated generation. We are expanding. This expansion will provide hundreds of more employment opportunities in the community to make a difference in the lives for those in desperate need, as well as transitional housing to provide accommodations for those escaping from harm or communities of domestic violence. This expansion will turn more families from abuse towards a safer life. Shouldn't it be a human right to live free of fear? Donate today to be the cause of change. Help create a world without domestic abuse.
Thank you for staying with us. Right now, we are going to go right ahead and introduce our next survivor, and which is Chris Randa Taylor, a Detroit native. She is a survivor of domestic violence who currently works at the Salvation Army Monroe Harbor Light as a pastoral care and a certified peer recovery mentor through the Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority and Michigan Certification Board for she's with the Certification Board for Addiction Professionals. God has placed her in a job where she can share her testimony about the grace, mercy, and forgiveness. And we're going to go ahead and welcome our next speaker, Mrs. Chris Randa Taylor. She's muted. Okay. Come on. Are you catching
I
it?
do. I'm sorry. Thank you. My name is Chris Randa Taylor, and I am currently, as Sandy said, working in capacity where I am able to share my testimony with the women that I work with in the Salvation Army Detroit Harbor Light Systems. My story started when I was young. I watched my mother in domestic violence with my stepfather. And so growing up seeing this type of violence, I thought that that was normal. I thought that this is what a relationship looked like. So early on, when I was involved with my oldest son's father, um, when he began to abuse me and beat me, I thought this is what a relationship was supposed to be like. After a while, I had had enough and I left that relationship. But I also need to tell you that he also introduced me to drugs. And so when I finally left him, I was addicted. And my sister, who was in Georgia at the time, told me to come to Georgia. I went to Georgia and went to uh, outpatient to get off of drugs. However, what happened, I ended up getting involved with a young man down there, and he was so charismatic and so attractive and everything. And I started staying with him, and I left my sisters. Anyway, the man was involved with drugs, and I ended up getting back on drugs. But what happened also was that he used to beat me, and I was disconnected with my sister, and I endured the abuse with him. Um, the first time it happened, it didn't happen right away. He didn't want me to work. He didn't want me to do anything but stay at home and cook. And the first time it happened, someone came over and one of his friends, and I was sitting and I had unbuttoned my pants because I was eating. And when he came home, he noticed that and immediately hit me so hard that he knocked me from the kitchen into the bathroom. I have loss of hearing in my ear because of that. Anyway, I continued to stay with him and continued to use drugs and thinking that this was my lot. This is what I was supposed to uh, endure, because like I said, my mother had endured domestic violence. And so eventually the domestic violence became so much that he would tie me up uh, and physically rape me and things of that nature. And I just had enough. So what I did while he was asleep, I had began to make me a bag, and I had hidden it behind the couch. And I got in, and when this particular evening, when he went to sleep, I got that bag and I ran and I left him. But I was still coming back in that neighborhood because I developed friendships in that area, and he found out that I had gone to see someone that we both knew, and he came there, and he pushed past. He came over to this person's house, and he literally just broke in. They didn't want him there. He broke in trying to get me. You're coming with me. You're coming with me. And came into the kitchen. I ran to the kitchen. He came behind me, and there was a table before me. And on the table, there was a knife. And when he pushed the table out of the way, I ended up stabbing him and ended up cutting 3 of my fingers, and including my flexor tendon. But before, like I said, I ended up stabbing him, and we both fell to the floor. But by that time, the police were there, and they arrested him. And of course, I went to the hospital. He did too. While in the emergency room, I heard someone calling my name, babe, babe, And when I realized it was him, I jumped up off the gurney and I began to attack him because I could not believe my hand. I had no use of my fingers, and I still have the scars on my fingers. And I've had several operations on the one finger to repair the flexor tendon. And I got out of that relationship, and I left Georgia. I ended up coming back to Detroit, and I went into treatment. I had to get off the drugs. God made a way for me to get into a drug treatment center. Now, domestic violence didn't stop immediately because then, like I said, I thought that this was what love looked like in a relationship. That when I would say something, or if a man hit me, I thought that was normal. But I had to come alongside of other women who helped to empower me and to help me to understand when I was in treatment that that was not the way things should be. And as I went in and completed treatment and moved on, I started talking to other women. I started going through therapy, and I ended up staying with the Salvation Army Harbor Light. And what they helped me to see that what I all the time was thinking that my self-worth was depicted on what a man thought of me. And so I was allowing men to tear me down instead of me being built up. And so I had to just stop being in a relationship until I could find out who I was. And one of the things I found is that God loved me. And the thing that was missing most is because my father wasn't there. I was dealing with a lot of rejection and abandonment issues, and those things I was able to uh, deal with and come to understand that I was not abandoned. God had never abandoned me, and that I still was loved. And I had to start loving myself and not put myself into uh, relationships that were toxic and that were damning, because I had to learn to love myself. And during that process, I continued to, I joined the Salvation Army, became a soldier, and then God placed me in and God has a way of putting you where you need to be. And he placed me in the treatment center with a job to talk as a peer recovery mentor to help other women who are struggling with drug abuse and domestic violence. And so I am able to rather share my story and became certified. I've also have a degree in mental health from Wayne County Community College because I wanted to know psychologically what was happening, you know. And so I'm working at the Salvation Army, Monroe Harbor Light. I had to become empowered. And so my testimony to anyone that's listening, that you do not have to accept anything, any type of abuse. And if I was to go from one stage to another, there were many instances and many relationships where I suffered abuse, some very degrading, and it would take, oh my goodness, so much time. But today, I am married. I am with a man that loves me and honors me. And that is all because of the grace of God and learning to be by myself and to know my worth first. And so that's what I do. I empower women. I do groups with women. I have one-on-ones with them, and I share my testimony and all the things. And recently, there's a girl that came to me, and her own um, first cousin started using her to get his drugs and put her in sexual situations, you know. And you know, she came to me, and I was able to share with her about my own struggles and the 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 tears that were shed in my office that day were all not only for her but for myself and for anybody who is going through that. I just love the fact that my niece Sandy has come and put this survivor's journey to peace together. Even today, and by being a part of this, the emotion and the pain that has caused still resonates in me, but I'm able to share it and heal daily. You understand what I'm saying? So I just want everybody to understand that this is a journey, and it is a journey to peace, to be at peace with yourself, to be at peace with what has been done to you, to be at peace with knowing that you are loved, that you can love yourself in spite of everything that we've gone through, even through my addiction, and knowing that that is not what God wanted for me, and knowing that I have a future and a hope. I always quote Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you hope in a future. And I hope by me sharing a small part of my testimony that I'm able to help somebody. Thank you for having me. God bless you all.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much, Aunt Chrissy, for that powerful testimony. Really do appreciate you. We are going to move along, and we're going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker, Dr. Taj Marie Hunter. Dr. Taj Marie Hunter is a thought leader, an educator who applies holistic integration and transformation in instruction. Also, she creates effective development and administrative strategies in organizations. She has a passion for the next generation and to see them become all who God has called them to be. Dr. Taj is from Florida, and Dr. Taj will be sharing her testimony of family abuse.
Great day to a wonderful group of panelists and a special guest streaming with us live. Before I share with you, I want you to do me this one favor and say after me, the winds may knock on my sails, but it won't overthrow my boat. You see, we have gathered here today under one common thread, and that is that we are survivors. And not to discredit anyone's journey, but I want you to just bear this in mind, that we should see ourselves as overcomers. I want,
Amen.
if you remember nothing else, don't be angry with your circumstances. It's a part of your testimony, and it is a proof that you overcame. And my testimony is this, that, you know, I grew up in a loving home. My daddy was in the military. My mom, she worked at a school. And I was the oldest at the time, and you know, I could remember we had great memories. My daddy was my world, and we would do things together. And I remember growing up seeing domestic violence afterwards. It's like I didn't know at what point there was a switch, but I knew that something was wrong. When I remember one day, there was just, you know, at the time my dad and my mom was together, and then I knew, you know, they were arguing a lot, and then afterwards I found out that my father was no longer living with us. Even though he wasn't present in the home, he would still be there, you know, he would still take us to school and all of that. So I did not know really as a child at that age that he wasn't there. I just thought it was because of his schedule, you know, being in the military, that it was just one of those assignments where, you know, he was just only available to take me and, you know, in the morning to work, and take me in the morning to school, sorry, and my mom to work at the time. But then I remember one day he came in very angry in the night, and there was a chair, and all I knew, he threw my mom down into the chair, and I just saw him just started beating her. And, you know, my mom didn't say anything. She was just crying. And then after that, he just left. You know, I don't remember the words that he said, but all I knew that something was wrong. And then that's when I started to find out that my family is no longer that family that I was used to. And the home, you know, now violence was now being introduced into the home. And, you know, after that, I realized that he introduced me to a woman, which I later found out that he started to cheat on my mom. And then that increased the domestic violence. So again, the same patterns. I will used to seeing him just come home, arguing with her, and then they start fighting. And that continued for a while. I remember after a while now, it started to, I guess they begin to initiate the whole divorce process. And so we started to, I remember, you know, being summoned to court. You know, my brother came along 3 years after, and because I was the oldest one, I was made to testify. And I remember vividly after, you know, it was based on the decision of the court that, you know, they were fighting for custody at the time. And so, you know, my mom had primary custody of us, and then, you know, we had to stay with him on the weekends, and on the holidays, you know, they had to do it half and half. And that holiday, he wanted to take me and my little brother to the country with his mother. And I just remember that day, I just did not want to go. I was just crying, and I was just hysteric, not knowing that it was, I knew internally something was wrong, or something was gonna be wrong, but I just didn't know what it was. Long and short of it, when I went to his mom's house, my grandmother's house, I had a older cousin at the time. He was a teenager. I was 6 at that age. And I remember he took me under the bed, and he violated me. He molested me, and he hurt me. And I remember he said to me that if it is that I say anything, that he's gonna tell them that I am the one that tried to come on to him. So as a child at 6 years old, that manipulation was introduced into my life. And then, you know, of course, I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything. And I hid it. You know, I just stayed there. I was just by myself. And again, before it was time to leave, again, he he did it to me. But based on the structure of the house, I was saying to myself, it was so open. How is it that nobody, decided to come into the room at that time? The house wasn't that big, but nobody is, like I said, how is it that nobody could have found me during that time? And so, again, he molested me and it happened. And then I went home. And so my mom, my little brother, I did not know how he know, but he said to my mom that somebody troubled Taj. I don't know if it was because I was crying, I was sad, I was withdrawn. I don't know. But I could remember he saying that, somebody troubled Taj. And then she just came to me and she said, what happened? And then I told her what happened. And immediately, I remember she jumped on the phone and she called her lawyer. So this was now ammunition. So when I told her that I was molested, now this was an ammunition for her to use to prove that my father wasn't fit to have custody of us. And again, I felt hurt again. Because I said to myself, my mom, she did not, I did not remember being comforted. I did not remember, she reassuring me that everything will be okay. All I just see was that she went on the phone, she disclosed this private information to me, and then she just used it. And then before you know it, we were back in court again, and I had to share and to just relive the whole experience. I remember being at school by this time, and it was time for it was the morning of going to the court now for the family court. And then I remembered my auntie, she called, I don't know how it is that she called the school, and they called me down from my class. And she said that, started saying I'm a liar. I'm going to put my father in prison. Nobody did me anything. I'm a wicked girl. And then after that, I said, okay, so again, irrespective of whatever happened to me, the fact that I said before my father was my world, I did not want to be the source of my father going to prison. And so I hid it. So when it came time to the court, I lied and I told them nobody troubled me. I changed my testimony. I changed my story. And I hid that, and I think, looking back now, I regret doing that because a part of me died when I did that. And it also opened up for my father to continue in his manipulative, doing the mind games, putting himself as the other survivors spoke about. I think it was Tanya, he had that narcissistic attitude, you can't do without him. Everything that he does is for you and to, in that web. And so, that went on. Now he even used it against me and even saying, and saying to me sometimes when he argues with me or we will fight, because afterwards, getting older, I decided that enough was enough. I'm not going to, put up with his behavior. And so we always, that loving relationship changed to just being very violent. I would fist fight him. And I remember even once, just because, somebody came over as a guest and, she lied and said I didn't make her something. And, he just came, I, slammed the door and he came after me and he almost killed me. And, I think it was the grace of God because, I told you he's a military person and the tactic, he had me in a chokehold. So if I could not fight, then I would have been dead. And, that continued the violence, I started to experience. And here am I saying to myself that, as I grew older, I would never want to be, in a domestic violence situation. I would never want to, I don't want to go through what I saw my mom going through. But here am I saying that, and the person who is supposed to protect me, my father, he's the one that is the source of that. And, I went through that challenge, and of course that broke down the relationship. And the final thing that broke the camel's back, and I'm going to wrap up with my testimony, was that I remember when my abuser, I after a while, this was like, I was an adult now, working and everything, and my sister, she was having a party, and I saw him. And having, over the course of the years, I based on my training as a social worker, I had to go through counseling and everything. So I was dealing with my own issues, and I had to, they told us that you can't be of ineffective help if it is that you haven't gone through your own healing. And so I remember when I was at school and I came to see him, I all of that, that counseling, all of what I knew, it's like it just came up, and it's like I started to have a panic attack, because as I said, I've never seen him in a while, and all of that, all of those emotions is like, what do I do? Do I speak to him? After a while, I even started to feel angry. I started to, I was I was pacing, all of that. I was just so anxious. And I called my aunt and I said to her, I said, this is what's happening. I can't do this. And she said, I'm not going to tell you to lie, but say something and get out of the house. Do not stay there. And, afterwards, after I left, my father wasn't pleased again, saying I'm selfish again, starting with the mind games and starting to speak negative over my life. And one of the things that he said to me, I said to him, this is why I left. And he said to me that, I spoke to the person, my abuser, and he said he didn't do anything to you. So you're lying. And I'm like, really? You're going to take his word over my word? And that's when I said I regretted what I did, because here am I protecting you. If it is that I spoke, you would have immediately got in prison and be, paying for your whatever happened if it is that I had spoken at that time when I was a young person, because again, they would have been charging him for negligence based on the fact that I was in his care at that time. And so again, I relived that. My lie, came back to haunt me, and it came back through the person who I was trying to protect. And, that was it, and that's how it has been, that he said, I'm a liar, and that was his thing, and I should get over it. And he started to, speak curse words, and that was it. And so I said to myself, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I need to get over this. I became suicidal. I wanted to kill myself. I said, you know what, I can't bother with this. This is just too much for me. It would be better if I'm off. I started to be in drug. I had a smoking habit, a very bad smoking habit, and that wasn't even good for me, because at the time I was asthmatic. So just imagine, that was not wise. And so, after going through that journey and everything, what I can say, the three things, just to sum it up and to tie it all in, the three things which allowed me to overcome was my faith in God. That even though I wanted to do all of those things, even though I was engaging even in drug abuse and doing those things, and thank God, I believe I could say this now, that he preserved me, because oftentimes going through repeated sexual offenses, it is proven that either two things: the individual either becomes promiscuous or they don't have anything interested in sex. And I was so fearful I saw sex as a tool of manipulation and just reliving that violation. And so I was on that corner of that spectrum, that I did not want to do anything. I did not like men. I did not, I did not want to go into that level of intimacy, because all I just see, that level of intimacy is harmful. Thank God he saved me. I'm married, and I have a wonderful husband, and that's no longer an issue, because I got delivered and stuff. But if it is that I did not go through, and my whole process of healing, I could see how that could have affected my marriage, and just taking that step and trying to build a family and a loving home. So again, the first thing I said was my faith in God. That was my source of dependence, and that is what pulled me through. And the second thing was was that I got to that place where I totally accepted my experience. I did not, I was in that stage. God, why me? I didn't do anything to anybody. I got through all those stages of grief. I'm being angry. I'm pointing fingers. At one point, I even felt like I wanted to kill my father and kill the person. Like I started to be angry, and I was like, when I got to that level of getting to that place, because when going back in the story, when I said to you that, we got in a fight, I reported it to the police, and they said to me that the reason why I had that decision, because when I went to the police, he was like, "Are you sure that you want to report this? And, this is your father, this is family issues, you need to work it out." And I'm like, so they did not take my story. She did not believe me. And that was it. And that nothing came out of it, because again, as I said, I was not going to let this opportunity pass by, or he continued to do this. And again, he continues to abuse women and do all of that. So I said, you know what, I need to put a stop to this. And so long and short of it, I got to that place where I said, you know what, I can't be going back in that cycle and blaming and going through those emotions. I had to now set boundaries and just come to that conclusion to just say, you know what, I'm going to accept this, and this is a part of my story, and this is how I'm going to own it. And that became that journey, as that journey to peace, and started the real healing, because again, I had to go through another, my abuse was so complex. It's like, once you think that you're over this hump and everything is great and you're healing and you're moving on with your life, he does something else to hurt you, my father, and abuse me again. And and so that cycle, I was in that repetitive cycle. So that was my complication, and that's when I had to just say, you know what, I'm just gonna own it. And I remember after a while, God just continually, he said that he's gonna just reveal to me, and he started to just show me glimpses of my purpose that I have to fulfill. And that's why I'm doing these things. I jump at every opportunity to just share my story, and hopefully through my experience, not to see yourself as a victim, but to see yourself again as an overcomer, and to just be a change agent, because that's what I want to do at the end of the day. It's not about me, it's about someone else's life. And that's how I feel like I have that responsibility to help someone to become better. So I just want to encourage someone, choose to remain unstuck. Take your small steps in healing. Forgive. That's a big part of it. Forgive. Forgiveness is not for the person. Always remember that. Forgiveness is for you. And forgive and submit all of these hurts and pains to God, because as I said, he can deliver you. I am a testimony of that deliverance. And two, get rid of that victim mindset. You can't keep replaying that the scene of the crime. That's just too much. You can't always blame that person. That's giving them too much power, and you don't need that. What you need to remember is that anyone who causes you to react out of the essence of who you are, they have mastery over you. And when I got that revelation, because as I said, now I started to feel like I wanted to kill him. I mean, that's not my personality. I believe I have the sweetest heart, and I just want to help people. That's just how I am. So, the fact that I started to have those emotions, I'm like, that's not you. When I started to look back in hindsight, that's not you. And so that would be an example of taking you out of your character and knowing that that's not the essence of who you are. And lastly, I just want you to be resilient. We can't live a life that's guarded. Things are going to happen. And, when we live a guarded life, that's going to cause us to just merely exist. And we have to just strive to live life in full measure. And I always say this, you don't want to get at the end of the days. This is a quote that I wrote, that you don't want to get to the end of your days entertaining regret, but you have to choose to live a life well spent, fulfilling your purpose and investing in great relationships. So thank you so much. And I really, really hope that you were blessed by my sharing. And thank you, Sandy, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Taj, for sharing your story. Your testimony is definitely powerful, and it's just an example of how domestic violence can turn into, family violence, children being actually involved. And it happens in a lot of homes where there is domestic violence. Children can become involved and become victims themselves of violence. So I want to thank you so much for that powerful testimony. That was awesome. We are ready to bring in our next survivor, and her name is Cynthia Turner, and she is from Alabama. Cynthia A. Turner is a life health coach that help adults and seniors deal with health issues, dealing with the mind, body, and spirit. She is a rape and domestic violence survivor that have overcame obstacles to her life and loves to cheer you on to your victory. She is a wife, a mom, and an empty nester enjoying life. Her hobbies are gardening and hiking, and she is from Alabama. So let's welcome Cynthia, our next speaker.
Good evening, Sandy. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to talk about domestic violence and the things that I've been through. Okay, outside of my marriage, it seemed like the perfect marriage that everybody that ever wanted. When you saw us, you thought happy thoughts about marriage, but behind closed doors, there was a different story. When you see us, it didn't start off like that. We was married 7 years, but after 2.5 years, things really changed. I was so in love with him. We were go-getters, we were vacations, we were entrepreneurs. We had a great life. Then all of that changed when we got on drugs, when he got on drugs. That person that I married was the same old person once drugs came into the picture. It started with mental and emotional abuse started. It felt like mind games. A lot of times I had to even think back to look at circumstances to see, did this really happen? Are these things really going on? I supported him as he went to rehab numerous times. I was by his side through thick and thin, as they say. I supported him in NA. I went to Narlanine to help understand the things that he was going through. Some of the things I went through, he got high. And one time he even stole my car. It got so bad one time a drug dealer came to our house and took his car because he owed them some money and they didn't pay. And one time he was gone for like long periods of time, numerous times during our marriage. And I used to work customer service jobs, so I got tired of some of the things that he did. And it was at the point that he would call my job saying he was going to change. I wouldn't accept his calls on my personal cell phone, so he would call my job. And I was like, okay, I didn't want people outside of my job, outside of my household to know what was going on. He would call my job and they would, of course, acting like a customer, they would transfer him to me. And he would leave messages on my voicemail, everything saying, I'm sorry, I'm going to change. All the time gaslighting, which I didn't know at the time that was gaslighting, but that's what he was doing. One of the moments that changed my life was when he called in the middle of the night from a phone booth saying he was through with drugs and to come get him. Numerous times he called. I usually didn't get up. That one time I did get up, but by the time I got to where he was nowhere to be found. And at one moment I noticed that he's just saying things. He's not doing what he's saying. Another time that changed my life was when he was at home and he had gotten high before he got home. He told me that things were really going to change again. And we got into a heated discussion and he left the house. A few days later, he called me and told me he couldn't live without me and he was going to kill himself. And I thought to myself, all the times we've been married, you've told me that numerous times. I'm not going to believe you. And I didn't hear from him anymore. And I thought, okay, he's just on one of his high moods and things are going to change. It was at a point that I didn't want him to die, but I just wanted to be at peace. Approximately a week or two had passed since that phone call from him. I get a call from the local hospital telling me he was indeed in a car wreck from trying to kill himself. And I was really shocked at that moment. I was like, well, he actually did what he said. I told him, I get a call from the police. I get a call from the hospital telling me that. And I told him, thank you, but I'm not coming to the hospital because this is just a tactic again to get me back. I waited a few days, and the next day he called and he told me he actually was in the hospital. And I did go. I didn't want to go, but I was like, well, he's still my husband, so I'm going to go. Eventually, he got out the hospital. Leaving the hospital, he needed care. And me being the wife that I was, I cared for him. All this time, I told him I didn't want to be with him, but I wanted to make sure he was okay because he was still with my husband. After the accident, it seemed that he had changed. Well, at least I thought. We was in church and living life, back to normal. Not much more later, the emotional abuse started all over again. There started all the things that he said he wasn't going to do. All the love bombing was over and back to normal. One day after church, we got into it and we went home and he got mad about something. I really don't even remember what it is anymore. He walked in the house and for the first time, he put his hands on me. What he did, we walked in the door and he shut the door and he strangled me against the door until I almost passed out. That moment changed everything for me. The police was called. I was with the local domestic violence organization in my area. I actually learned at that time what domestic violence was because I only knew about physical abuse. I didn't know about any other types of abuse. Time went on and there was more love bombing. And yes, again, we got back together. Time went back and forth. Numerous years went on, but finally, the end of my domestic violence was October 15th, 2007. That happened when he pulled a gun on me and he almost ended my life. I was tired and I was taking no more. What I want to talk about is I was glad I had a support system because a lot of people do not have support systems. And I was finally getting the help that I was too scared to get while we were together. I had a loving church and pastor that really protected me and my kids. We got support and we went to counseling and I got my kids some counseling. What I want to let people know that a lot of domestic violence people do not have the support of their church. I want to let you know that domestic violence can happen to anyone, including in the church. And people in the church, yes, they need help also. A lot of people don't want to talk about domestic violence, but it is knowledge that needs to be heard and told. A lot of people in the church are going through domestic violence and are told to pray and stay no matter what. I'm glad, honestly, personally, I didn't have that experience, but working with different people, I've heard those things being said by victims. And I'm like, that's awful to hear that you want to go, you don't believe the victim and they take the part of the person that abused, or they just believe they're lying. They don't give them no support, or they just basically ignore them. And I want to, what I've done some, but I want to do even more. I want to go inside the churches to educate women about domestic violence so they can know the red flags. Because myself, like I said, I only knew physical abuse. I didn't know about many other types of abuse. I want to let people know, because maybe if I had known a little more, I would have walked through that path. I can't say I wouldn't, but I would at least known the flags. I want to let people know that you do not have to go through domestic violence in silence. I would like to let people know about the red flags that are for domestic violence and never have to go through them. So they never have to go through anything like any of us on this panel and speaking today have been through. Even though I've heard the information, when I went through through domestic violence and went through the organizations I went through, I did not really want to leave at first. I denied everything that was going on. I said that it's just one time thing, things will change. But let me let you know, you don't want your story to be our story. We want you to get out today. I pray you get out. It is not too late. Take your life back. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, please take healthy steps to get out. Call the number that's on our screen to get help. Know that you need a support system. If you're trying to hide things, because that's what I did, I hid and not let people know. Let someone know, because someone needs to know what's going on in your life. They're not going to always be bad. Everybody's not against you. Even though the perpetrator will make you think everyone is against you, everyone's not against you. Tell someone, get the help. Please know you have to love yourself. Take your life back. Let me let you know from experience, you cannot change anyone. They have to make their own decisions, and so do you. So please today, start your journey to peace, to journey. And thank you so much, Sandy, for this time.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for sharing your story. Cynthia said something very important, that the faith community, churches, what have you, really, it'd be really beneficial if the faith community kind of get, information on how to better serve a parishioner who is going through domestic violence. And so thank you for shedding light on that. Thank you, Dr. Taj, for shedding light on family violence and how it can actually affect individuals and children. Right now, what we're going to do, we are going to play a quick introduction video on the event, and then we're going to come back with our panel discussion. Thank you for staying with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for rejoining us. What we are going to do now, we're going to go into our interactive panel discussion. So we have a couple of questions that we'll be going through as a panel. If you out there in the audience or any viewers, if you would like to submit a question, you can definitely go ahead and do that, and then we'll get that question answered for you. And so the first question is, how does, with this being a global panel, and we do have individuals from different countries, we want to want to ask, the first question is, how does your culture view domestic violence? And how does your culture hold abusers accountable? So if we can have anyone kind of jump in and just answer that question. How does your culture view domestic violence?
For me,
Well,
okay. Go ahead, Sonia.
sorry. I can speak within my family culture, especially from the Caribbean, blend Caribbean, South American. It's not spoken about, especially for the women that are experiencing it. It's kind of hush hush, kept under, the rug. It's what happens in the home, stays in the home. It doesn't travel outside the home. And growing up, I witnessed my uncles, getting away with all sorts of, behaviors and patterns that were definitely not healthy. But it just was never something that or at least for me growing up, I never felt that I can go to my aunt or my grandmother and speak about, relationships and, other things other than being a good wife and making sure that you're taking care of the kids and that sort of stuff. I never felt that I could do that. So definitely being able to seek support outside of the home, that's something that was something that I had to do for myself, and that started online. But for me, within my family culture, that wasn't something that it's not a topic that's openly invited to talk about. I don't know about the rest of the ladies.
Okay. Veronica, would you like to answer that question?
Well, in my case, in my culture, the situation, especially not just Bolivia, it's all around South America, is terrible. They said that probably 8 of every 10 women in Bolivia had suffered some type of violence inflicted by a partner, and that's a lot. And unfortunately, moms, women who suffer this kind of domestic violence, they have more than 3-4 kids coming from poor families. And unfortunately, they don't have shelters. There's no shelters where women can go. If there's probably one in each city or 2, but it's not enough. So moms prefer to continue living with the abusers because they said, okay, I have 6, 5, 4 kids. And what I'm going to do if I leave this relationship, what I'm going to do with my kids, where I'm going to go, because they are not allowed to work because they have to take care of the family, they have to take care of the house. And they have that situation where they prefer to be beaten because they know that their kids are going to have food and they're going to have a house where it can stay. But unfortunately, most of those women die because of the consequences of the domestic violence.
Would any other lady like to comment on that question or answer that question?
I could speak for that. I share the same sentiments that Tanya and Veronica shared with regards to your specific family and that statistics that she mentioned, that I have found out in my my training, being a social worker, working in that environment, working with kids, with adults, persons in the prisons. You find that this whole issue of violence is so complex, and there's so many reasons that can contribute. And of course, Tanya mentioned, Veronica mentioned, but I can speak from my family experience, for example. I could say that it's the same thing, being a child of a person who is in the military, you are grown rigid. Of course, it makes it more complex because my father struggled with physical abuse. And so, that dynamic coming into play. But the core of it is that you're grown rigid, you're grown independent. So for me, my struggle when it came to domestic violence was that I didn't know how to express my emotions. I know something was wrong, so I was taught, even as a girl, I'm a female, and my dad would say, "Oh, you're a girl, you're too soft, stop acting so girly." So I was grown to be tough, and so crying to me was like a sign of weakness. Um, you know, Even talking, I could not express my emotions clearly, and so of course, again too, with his background, and a lot of persons knew him and my mom, I believe that a shame came into play. You are exposing the family. You don't want to have that accountability as well, and so there's so many things that would cause you to hinder seeking help, because of all those things. And I have seen too where I have spoken with persons who have survived, and one of the things is that I have seen, like, about 1 in 8 persons, the majority, that they reported that when it is that they try to share, that the first thing somebody's going to tell them that they're not telling the truth. No one believes them. You're trying to, like, as Tanya was saying, like, with her experience, oh, this because of who the person is. Nobody can fathom that they're like that, because guess what? It's like you're trying to be the bad guy. So as I said, there's so many things that can affect that. But as I said, the core of what my family thing is just bringing shame to the family, and so because of that, you just keep that secret to yourself and just suffer in silence.
Yes, that's interesting. Suffer in silence. And that's something we definitely don't want to happen any longer. And that's why we're pushing for awareness, and we're pushing for advocacy, so that individuals won't have to live in silence, and know that there are resources, and that there is help and hope available. In my culture growing up, domestic violence is something that I did see. I remember when I was about 14, 15, we lived in an apartment building, and I remember every Friday night, the apartment to the right of us, my bedroom was a shared bedroom with the couple who lived next door. And I can remember every Friday night, I would see the husband coming home, and with a brown bag. And I could, later that night, you would hear, him slamming her against the wall. You would hear him, cussing. You would hear the fight. And then the next day, you would see her with a black eye, with a busted lip. And she would never say anything about it. Is as if, as if it wasn't there, as if, it wasn't heard. And so that's, how it was. It's like you would see people go through it, they won't say anything, and you won't ask any questions because of that. So different cultures do experience it in different ways. Did anyone else wanted to chime in on that? Okay. So we will go on to the next questions. Why, the question that a lot of people ask is, why don't men or women, because again, we want to, make it clear that men are also victims of domestic violence as well. We don't want to leave out, the that community. I mean, like we say, everyone is affected by it, including that hard to reach community, like the lesbian, gay, bisexual, the trans and queer communities. We have women with learning disabilities who are also affected. And we have the Black and the minority communities as well. So we don't want to leave out, anyone because everyone can be a victim of domestic violence. The next question I have is what everybody, probably on the panel probably have heard this question. And that question is, why don't you just leave the abusive partner? Why don't you just leave? And we could start with Veronica.
I think in my case was because I was in constant denial. Because as I said, I was a lawyer, I was powerful, I know where my life wanted to be, and all of a sudden everything changed. And I was in constant denial, like, this is not happening to me. It was just one thing that happened, and the next day I was trying to to pretend that nothing was happening. And of course the guilt that you have, because I remember a day before my wedding, my dad told me, if you don't want to get married, don't get married, just leave everything the way that it is, and because this is going to be forever. And in my mind, of course, the ego plays a big role, because you think like the love that I have is going to change him, and and you think all the time how I can help him. As most of the women here, it was me, the one who was going to therapy to try to understand him. It was me who was blaming, because I said like, oh, probably I shouldn't ask him that question. It was my fault that he reacted like that. And at the end, you don't want to leave the relationship, because first you become a mom, because that's his promise. That was his promise when he said that I'm going to change once we have kids. I'm going to be better, and once I have my twins, everything got worse. And then I was thinking, I'm all alone here, what I'm going to do. So it was part of that. I was scared that I didn't want it to leave, because I was like, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go. I cannot go back to my country. I don't have family here. And then the question is how I'm going to start all of this, where I should start, who I should call. So that's why sometimes you don't leave that relationship, because you're even though that I was the one who was advocating for those women, but it was not here, and this is not my country, this is not my language. And that's why it took years for me to make a decision.
Chris, Chris Randall, would you like to chime in on that question? Okay.
A lot of times the reason that I didn't leave is because sort of like what exactly what Veronica was saying, because being in Georgia at the time, I didn't have any body to turn to. And I remember one of the times where he abused me. He had I went to the hospital with bruised ribs, and ended up in a domestic violence shelter. And I didn't wait. I stayed there several days, just healing and the women loving on me. But I I I I thought that he was my only option, and I ended up going back because I was afraid uh, to. I think I was afraid to move forward. You know, I was caught up in this thing where I thought that this was normal. And I also felt that everything that was happening to me, it was my fault. I kept thinking that this was my lot. Like I said earlier, watching my mother go through it, and as a young girl growing up thinking that this is what a man and a woman's relationship involve. I can remember also being as a young girl being in my room, pretending I was in a relationship, and actually acting out a man hitting me, and thinking that this is what, I mean, uh, this is the way that love was supposed to be. And so a lot of times when I ended up going back to a relationship, it was because I didn't have the courage. I didn't know any better, and um, I didn't have the resources, and I didn't have family, and I was afraid. There goes the shame. I didn't want to. I didn't want to tell anybody what I was enduring as well. So I stayed, until, it got to the point where, like, one of the times, like I said, I ended up stabbing him. But, eventually God made a way for me to leave.
So much. Now I could say, with being, you know, when I was a victim of domestic violence, one of the reasons I didn't leave was just fear.
Hmm.
The fear was overwhelming. The fear was almost like paralyzing. Like,
Hmm.
you just couldn't make that move in fear of
Yes,
what would
yes,
happen if
yes.
you did. Who is
How
going to
can I
get
leave?
hurt?
Yes.
Someone may lose their life. It will be, some retaliation or something going on within the two families if, your family finds out that this is actually happening. They are
Hmm.
going to act. So mine was just basically just out of fear, but I thank God that He made a way for me to get out without
Yes.
without having to have my family involved in any way. And we all work in environments where we are now, empowering women, helping women and men get to the places in life where, where they can be their best, where they could, walk in their destiny, and honor that everyone kind of has chosen that path. And usually an individual who has gone through domestic violence usually ends up in that type of role, which is helping and empowering someone else to get out. Now, do you feel that women empowerment kind of increases the chances of a woman actually being abused again in a relationship once they're empowered? Do you think that that kind of opens them up to abuse?
Well, I will say that when in my story you heard that me say things about I went and got the information about domestic violence, but ended up going back. And when I used those tools that I had learned from the training, it ended up, I don't say hurt me, like you can learn something and don't say nothing to the other
Hmm.
person. That I didn't do that. I was the type, oh, so I know you're gaslighting me. I know you're being manipulative. And he was like, what are you talking about? No, that's not going on. And it seemed like the things that I learned, he would try to flip it back on me. No, you're being manipulative. No, you're gaslighting me. I'm like, no, you're the one hurting me. And like once I got that knowledge, it came, I don't say it came back, it gave me knowledge to fight back in words, but it also gave me thought cycle, okay, I need to get a safety plan. Things that I did not tell. I told him some things that he was doing that I did not like. Usually I didn't stand up for. But it also, the other things I did not tell him was getting a safety plan. Finally, I told one person, I told one of my friends. A couple of my friends ended up knowing. They were like, well, we didn't know you were going through that. It let me, instead of keeping the secret just with the domestic violence organization, it let me talk and speak to other people and let them know, even though what you see on Facebook, what you see me walking around smiling, this is a fake smile. I need you to know that, hey, even I let one neighbor know that if a light was on, I had a certain kind of light that I had in the house. If that light was on, you knew to call the police, because what about if I couldn't call the police? They knew if they saw that I had like a little red light. I don't even have it anymore, but I had a little red light that if it came on in the house, they knew to call the police. So somebody had to know. And yes, I thought in the end, yes, it hurt me, but no, at the end, getting out and letting people know about what happened, it helped at the end.
Thank you, Cynthia. Would anyone else like to chime in on that question? Okay. So the last question we have here for the panel. Statistics show that every minute about 20 people are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
What would your advice be for a person watching right now who is living in violence? And I would like everyone to answer this question. What would your advice be for a person living in violence? And we'll start with Dr. Taj.
Yes, the first thing I would like to say is that you have to seek help. Don't suffer in silence. Get over that hump, as we all shared. Yes, it's normal to be afraid, to be filled with guilt, to experience shame. But at the end of the day, you have to start taking care of yourself and choosing and making right choices. So the first thing I will encourage anyone is, if it is a situation where you can get help. So if, for example, it's physical abuse, and it's getting really violent, and especially where kids are involved, you have to be very careful, because in my situation, even though I experienced it afterwards, while I was growing up, it affects the kids greatly. And even if it is that you think that they're too young, they may not understand. Kids know right from wrong. They know when your mom or your dad is being hurt, and they comprehend. So don't put them in that environment or let them stay in that environment where that's going to be detrimental to them, because eventually that's going to also affect them, and they have to walk through that, because there are consequences to experiencing violence, and you see, the implications of that. And so first, get help. If you can leave the place, you can go to somewhere safe. There's shelters. If you can stay with a family member until you can dissolve the relationship. If it is that you feel, I have seen as well where persons can be forgiven. I've seen relationships where it does come back from the abuse. The person did it once, and they got counseling and things change for the better. But for me, I would not tell anybody to stay in that situation. You have to make that decision for yourself. That's based on your conviction, because really, when you're dealing with a person who is domestic violence, prone, there's so much hurt that's going on. That person is broken within himself. Even my father, for example, I truly believe that he has gone through some level of hurt and trauma in his past where he does that, because apart from him acting like that, he's the sweetest person, the kindest person. He's very goal oriented. I mean, he's very loyal. So I say that to say that there's good traits about him, but that struggle, really overshadows it and really makes him look totally bad. And so that's all I have to encourage someone.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tanya, would you like to answer that question? What advice would you give to an individual who's watching now and who may be in a violent relationship?
Yeah, well, I can speak from my personal experience dealing with a narcissist, because it's more emotional abuse. One of the big things for me that I had to learn was to create new boundaries for myself. And one of the major ones, when you are coming out of like a narcissistic relationship, is going no contact. So I'm sure some of the other ladies on the panel have heard about that as well. So going no contact means that you cut all contact off with this individual. And I know it's hard especially if you have children with this person. But there's ways to work around that. But in my case, that was like a huge factor for me, because like I said, when you're coming out of a narcissistic relationship, it's you're completely off balance. Like I think the term, they describe it as being like shell shock. So it's kind of like you're trying to like catch up to everything that's been happening to you physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. So going no contact gives you that time to get yourself back into alignment. I would also say support. Support was a big thing that was taken away from me unknowingly. So having to go through that journey for a few years by myself and keeping that to myself and trying to figure things out for myself really added to my, I guess, my burden of trying to fight my way through it on my own. So I would say definitely find support. If you don't have support in your family, if you don't have support among your friends, because they may not understand, they may not believe you, this person is like so amazing, they treat you so well in public, trying to find outside sources, online. Another big one was for me was to, gain knowledge in terms of what happened to you and the type of abusive relationship that you were in. However, that comes, on, Google, YouTube. YouTube's a great resource. That's how I started kind of putting the pieces together to figure out what happened to me. And circling back to that empowerment piece or question that you were asking, that is a part of your empowerment, is, picking yourself up. And I know some days I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to stay in bed. There was nights that I was like, I just didn't want to even exist. I didn't want to get up, but there was something in me that just saying, just keep going, just keep going. The answers are going to come to you, and they will come to you. It'll take time. And what I can say is don't rush the process. Don't compare your healing journey to someone else's healing journey. Just take time to process what happened to you. And you'll see that day by day, you'll start to gain that strength. You'll start to get that clarity, and you'll know when it's time for you to start putting things in motion. But during that time, just arm yourself with knowledge, get the support, and just go no contact as much as you possibly can. I can't speak to homes where there's like, a married couple, because I'm sure that has its difficulties and complications on its own, but at least maybe having like a safe space where you can go to, where if you know what triggers your abuser, if you know that there's going to be a flare up and you can see it happening, you already know, okay, I have my safe space. He's going to come home at a certain time. Let me just leave with the kids around this time so I could just put that distance there between us. So there's kind of like that cooling off period. So that's what the no contact does as well. But that was a big one for me. It's just new boundaries, no contact, empowering myself with as much knowledge as possible, and being easy with myself, like just taking time not to push myself and be like, well, why can't I get out of thinking about him or wanting to go back to, the way things that used to be. It's like you have to reprogram yourself, but that takes time. So don't rush it.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you for that insightful information. Great advice. Veronica, what advice would you give to an individual watching right now who is in a violent relationship?
I think the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, am I happy? Because happiness is not just for 5 minutes or one day, because that's what our abusers do. You've been abused, but then the next day everything is like nothing happened, and they bring you flowers, you plan trips, and this continues. This change continues. It's like you are unhappy because he mistreats you, he calls you by names, he puts you down, he hits you, but the next day flowers and love and kisses, and it continues. So what you need to ask yourself is that, am I happy? Because that's the true question that you need to answer yourself. And as me, for example, I couldn't see myself through the mirror because I was hating myself. I knew that the life that I was having, it was not the life that I wanted to have, and especially the life that I didn't want to show my daughters. And that's why I took all the mirrors out of my house. And I said, this is not normal. So when you see that things that should be normal are not normal, you need to ask yourself, what can I do now? And there are two situations that you can be when domestic violence happens. One is that if you think that your life is in danger, just call the police. In my case, I couldn't call the police because my experience in law told me that never call the police, because the first thing that they do here in United States is they take your kids to foster cares. And that's why I have to be quiet and I couldn't call, but that was not true because they were just defending their son. So you need to be informed. Call to these phone numbers that they're appearing all the time. Talk to your neighbors. Talk with your family members. Talk people in your church. Tell them what is happening, because sometimes you in your mind think that probably this is normal, or probably I deserve to live the life that I'm living right now. So what you need to do is talk with people. But if you feel that your life is in danger, call the police, grab your things, and just leave the house. But if you have time to planify, do it with time. Like make a list, grab a bag full of documents, plan when you're going to go, grab money from the bank, because the first thing that my ex-husband and their family did is cut all the bank accounts, all the money. I was like with zero money. And planify that. Take money out of the bank, planify where you're going to go and where you're going to be safe. Talk with your family members, people that is close to you, and tell them what is happening in case that something bad happens. So what I recommend also is after you leave that the domestic violence relationship, I'm going to tell you that it's not easy, because it's not the end, because it's a process of healing, and that process will hurt. But once you are there, at least you are going to feel that you are free, and that you have your wings, that they start moving. And what I recommend you also is that stop blaming yourself. Stop pointing fingers. Stop telling, thinking that your abuser is the only one who missed it, who failed in all of this. I think that we need to ask ourselves, once we are out of that the type of relationship, is how I heal myself, how I'm going myself happier, because happiness is not in other people. Happiness is inside of you. So the first thing that you need to do is find your happiness, heal yourself, and once you start doing that, you're going to feel that you can even forgive him. And that's the most important part. The process of healing starts with forgiveness.
Yes.
And now I can say that after 6 years in court, because after the domestic violence, of course, he has a lot of money. He was able to hire a lot of attorneys, because he wanted to take the custody. He wanted to have the 100% custody. So I was fighting in court over those 6 years with no money, no family. This is not my language. And he knew that he was going to hurt me by taking my kids. That was the only thing that he could do to hurt me. So I had to go to court. I had to fight. I had to fill papers. I had to study at nighttime. He could see me with all those books to study again, to how to be a lawyer again. But once I was there, I realized that sometimes you just need to learn to fight your battles, because they are going to continue attacking you and talking and talking and talking. But sometimes you just need to let them go. It's like you need to find and ask yourself, is this important? What they're saying and the fact that they want me to continue being in their game, I'm going to follow that. So sometimes you just need to choose your battles in order to find your peace. And what I recommend to all the ladies there, and all the guys too, is that find your happiness. That's the most important thing. Find your happiness and find your peace. You're not going to find that in other person. You're going to find it just here inside of you. So work on that.
Amen. Thank you so much, Veronica. And we're going to go with Cynthia. Cynthia, what advice would you give to a victim who's living in an abusive relationship right now?
I want to let people know you do not have to go through domestic violence in silence. And I pray you get out. It's not too late. Take your life back. If you're in an unhealthy relationship, please find steps to get out. You might not have any family. You might not have any friends. Call the shelters. Don't be at the point that I'm not going to go to a shelter. It can be temporary. You need to be back to some normalcy. You don't need to be around any abuse. Like when I went through it, I was ashamed. I was married. It was my second marriage. And I was like, I don't want to go through this again. I didn't want to tell my family, especially I didn't want to tell my dad. Because I was like, I know my dad was going to be in jail. Because I knew about you, my dad was going to kill him. And I was like, I don't want to lose my husband and lose my dad. Because I already had lost my mom. And I was like, I can't lose my dad. That was an important thing. I was like, well, I know my dad. And I was like, how do I tell my family what's going on? Because all they see is me smiling in their face. To just know, take a step, get your life back. It's not going to be easy. It's a journey. You don't want to stay where you are. Take a chance to make a decision to change. If you have kids, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your kids. You don't want your kids to go look back later and look at all the things they have to go through now. Start your journey to peace. Get help. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline number that's on the screen. Get help. And I wish you luck, and I will be praying for you. And it's a journey. Start your journey today.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. And Auntie Chrissy, what advice would you give to an individual who is watching now, who may be in a domestic violence or unhealthy relationship?
Well, first, I would definitely, I'm praying for anybody who is in a relationship right now that is abusive. And each panelist has given all some good advice. I definitely would say make a plan to get your documents and everything together. Your happiness does not involve that person. Understand that there is help out there. They've been putting the number across the screen, but definitely plan, speak up, let somebody know what you are going through. With me, you know, it was so much pride. Let go of that pride of not wanting anybody to know that you got this all together, that your relationship is good. You know, everybody is not going to look down on you. Let somebody know. If you're in church, let the pastor know. Go to someone inside of the church to let them know. Just open up your mouth, speak up, speak about it. Get some help afterward, after you leave, you know. And I like what one of the panelists said about no contact. A lot of times when we get out or when we get away, that person contacts us or we contact that person. Take everything you need. And uh Veronica was talking about the documents. Get all the documents that you need, and go to the bank, get you some money, and put it aside. If you don't leave right away, but stash all of that stuff so when you do go, you can make a clean break. Don't stay in that relationship any longer than you have to, because even with me, when I was sharing about me me stabbing him, it could end up in somebody seriously getting hurt, injured, or even dead, you know, and you don't want that, you know. And as someone was saying, the children, you know, we see that. Like I was saying, I grew up with that. And this is what little girls think this is acceptable. You know, it's not. You know, I stay in a apartment complex right now, and I hear it. You know, the abuse, the violence was looking at me, and my husband was looking at it the other day, a man and a woman out there fighting. This is a constant thing. This needs to get out. People need to know that this is still happening and that there is a way for the people, the ladies and the men, to get help, because this woman was actually uh, spitting on him, and that is that's unacceptable. So awareness, people need to know about this. And if you are in this type of relationship, like I said, plan, get out, no contact, and get information, okay? And I too will be praying for all of you.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aunt Chrissy. And my advice to anyone watching now who may be in an unhealthy relationship or in a relationship where domestic violence is happening, my advice would be to tell someone, to share. To share. The one thing I did is I kept it a secret. That was my secret, and I hid it. And when you leave a violent relationship, the trauma that you've went through, once you leave, you have to, your body, your mind, you are going to have to deal with that trauma. And it could come in ways of PTSD and different things such as that. You're going to have those memories of it. You're going to relive some of those moments that you were in. So definitely, and I had to live through those moments by myself because I didn't tell anyone. And so if I would tell someone that I was waking up in sweats, that I was having all of these, things going on with myself, then I would have to tell them where the root of that was coming from. And I wasn't ready to do that. So you don't have to go through it alone. There are safety planning measures that you can take to leave, because sometimes leaving is all the time. Leaving is one of the dangerous times in a domestic violence relationship, is leaving. A lot of individuals actually lose their life in an attempt to try to leave. So there's a safe way to actually leave. And if you are not sure what that is, you can reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can contact Survivors Journey to Peace at survivorsjourneytopeace.org. We also help with safety planning. So again, and don't stay silent. Let individuals know. And then I would also like to tell, individuals out there, when someone is in a domestic violence relationship, 9 times out of 10, people see it. People notice that they're different. People notice that, they're not right. They're withdrawn. They're doing things that they probably wouldn't usually or normally do. And we need to be there for each other. That person probably would not, speak out, or you just asking that person how they are. And that conversation could kind of lead to that. Come up with, a safe word. If you know somebody who is in a domestic violence relationship, come up with a safe word, a word that they could say to you, that you will know that, hey, they need help. I need to contact, the authorities and get them some help over there. So we need to come together and help each other through this pandemic, what we are going through right now and have been going through for a long time with domestic violence. So again, my advice is to get help, is to, believe, when you have someone coming to you telling you that, they are in abusive relationships or unhealthy relationship, believe them. Just listen, just believe what they're saying, and help them get through that most traumatic time of their life, and be there with them afterwards. It is a journey. It could take sometimes years for individuals to actually even get in that place of being safe, get into that place of having even a little peace. Healing comes with forgiveness. Healing comes with self-love. Healing comes with self-care. And over this summit, that's what we've been hearing: healing, self-love, self-care, talking about it, sharing. So that would be my advice. And we have I just want to thank everyone for taking, the time to actually share their stories. When you are a survivor of domestic violence and you do share your story, there are triggers that come, there are emotions that come. So, I know if you haven't received them, you're probably going to be experiencing them. And so I would definitely encourage everybody to, reach out to someone and just, have that conversation. And as a group, we will be having conversations and debriefing, because it brings up old things, and
Yes.
we would have to, deal with that. But I just thank everybody for that. A survivor, what makes a survivor? A survivor is someone who is resilient, someone who is durable in distressing situations. They regain their emotional balance. They quickly adapt and they cope well. They thrive by gaining strength from adversity, and often they convert their misfortune to a gift. And I am so proud to know and have an opportunity to enjoy the platform with all these women and survivors today who have turned their misfortune time. We're going to be moving right now, so that we can commemorate those who lost their lives to domestic violence. So we're going to do that now. I will be reading a poem, and after that poem, we'll have a 1 minute and 12-second moment of silence to commemorate the 72 lives that was lost to domestic violence here in Wisconsin, and also all of the lives that have been lost to domestic violence around the world. So the poem reads: When I'm gone, when I come to the end of my journey and I travel my last weary mile, just forget, if you can, that I ever frown, and remember only my smile. Forget unkind words I have spoken. Remember some good I have done. Forget that I ever had a heartache, and remember I've had loads of fun. Forget that I have stumbled and blundered and sometimes fell by the way. Remember I have fought some hard battles and won to close the day. Then forget the grief for my going. I would not have you sad for a day, but in summer just gather some flowers and remember the place where I lay. And come in the evening when the summer paints the sky in the west, stand for a few moments beside me and remember only my best. We'll have a moment of silence now for 1 minute and 12 seconds. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, I would like to thank everyone who participated. Thank you for answering a call. Thank you for being um, a change agent in the kingdom. Thank you for being a servant of sharing your testimony and your words of encouragement. Thank you for providing hope. And thank you for just sharing a piece of yourself with us. I am sure that your story has resonated with someone watching today or even the replay. And we would like to thank the public for joining us. We hope that you have gotten some great information from this. We're hoping that you've got some insight on the different types of abuse there is. We have covered narcissistic abuse, domestic violence, family violence, rape, molestation, physical, verbal, emotional, and financial abuse. And Survivor's Journey to Peace, again, we are a nonprofit organization who is serving individuals of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, helping them to rebuild, restore, and transform their lives after abuse. If you are in need of any type of services or help, you can give us a call. Our direct line is 262-444-1961. We provide advocacy, outreach, education. We provide resources for food, for housing, for employment, and anything else that you may need. I would like to thank Pastor J.D. Lawrence for helping with the production. He did an awesome job. He is so very patient, and he has been able to help us bring forth this message and this word. I pray that everyone just I pray that everyone just get everything that God has for them. And I love you all. Thank you so much.